What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This is Elevation with Chris Oram, the show where we talk to individuals who have climbed the ladder of success. Today is episode 32, and we have Jason Sayen on the show. And let me introduce Jason here. So Jason is a process architect, and that basically means he helps people document their processes and stop living in chaos. Jason has 30 years in the electronic industry where he started out working in car audio, and he's worked for several brands in the custom integration industry, such as Savant, JL Audio, Audio Control, and more. And one thing I really admire and respect about Jason is his ability to network. Jason is one of the most prominent figures in the custom electronics industry. And one thing I really like about him is you can constantly see him interacting with other folks on LinkedIn, sharing posts. And what I really appreciate about him is that he shares posts for other people who might be in need. Hey, I really need to hire someone for my job, sharing for reach, because you never know when that person could be you. And that's something that, Jason really values, is building that relationship. So it's an honor to have Jason here on the show today, where I welcome him for episode 32 of Elevation with Chris Oram, live here in Las Vegas. Jason, what's up, man?
Happy to be here in Las Vegas.
Cool, man. Dude, it's so great to have you for an in-person podcast here in Las Vegas. How's Las Vegas been treating you?
It's dry. It's cold.
Yeah?
It's good, though.
Are you having fun? Tell us what you're working on today.
So I'm working with a local custom integration company called Simply Connected. They hired me for my 2-day workshop where we're going to spend time identifying all their operational gaps and creating a strategy so that they can kind of build a foundation for scaling.
Very cool. So you have your own business called I Am Sayen LLC, and I want you in your own words to tell us more about that.
Sure. You want how it started, where it started?
So tell me first about what you do, and then I'll kind of ask maybe why you started it.
Got it. So I help companies get unstuck when they grow faster than their systems and processes can support. And so that happens with every company. It doesn't matter what stage you're at. When that growth starts breaking things, it's time to reset and recalibrate and kind of take a look at your processes and all the gaps that have been formed and how to solve for those.
So what if no one has a process? Like, I think a lot of companies probably don't even know what their process is. How do they first start documenting maybe what's important? And then where would you tell someone that has no processes documented, where should they start?
So I like to correct people first that they actually do have a process.
Yep.
It's in their head.
Right.
So what they don't have is something documented,
Sure.
Something that is repeatable that everybody kind of can see and knows. So the first step is getting that on a paper and capturing the current state on how it happens, literally with a whiteboard or Post-it notes.
Yeah.
What's the first step? What are the things that trigger that step? What happens next? And you keep asking yourself what happens next to then have kind of a clear path. And by doing that, you'll start to actually identify where the breakdowns are because you're verbalizing them and you're writing them down in front of your teammates.
And then maybe this is me just assuming, but is one of the most common things like, I thought so-and-so was going to do this? Like, is that one error you see commonly?
Yeah, happens a lot. Like lack of clarity on like roles and responsibilities or, oh, that's actually how we do it. I didn't know that's how we do things.
And you make it just simple. Like it could be like phone call comes in. That's one step to the process. And I think people overcomplicate things, but there is a lot of steps to these custom integration processes. It is a long and complex process, but we make it too complex, and you come in and simplify it.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge a lot of people or problem is they look at everything in their business as a process. So they're not sure where to start. Like we have all these problems that aren't documented. We don't even know where to start. Yeah. And so kind of identifying a process isolated from the overall process is the first part. And then having a method of like, you're not just staring at a blank sheet to capture it, but just to theoretically and methodically like write it down so you can analyze it.
So how I would frame it, and maybe you would agree with this assessment, is that putting it on the paper is one thing, but then putting it into practicality is actually the difficult part.
Yeah.
So let's first focus on putting it on paper and kind of what you consider your workshop. So your workshop today or a traditional workshop, talk me through the process. You're the facilitator. What exactly are you trying to peel out from that integrator?
So less about me coming in with my experience and telling them how they should run their company.
Do a lot of people think that you're the consultant that's going to come in and either tear them to shreds, save the day. Like when the technicians hear that Jason Sayen's coming, like, have you heard rumors about like what that means?
Yeah, they think it's gonna be like Bar Rescue.
Bar Rescue. Okay, that's a good one.
Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that. You should do that.
I just don't have that extroverted personality, but yeah, my job is to facilitate the conversations they're not having, right? So as a team, they're seeing these things breaking down, but they're not talking about how to fix them.
Yeah.
So I'm there to facilitate it and to keep it from becoming finger pointing and like a blame game. It's just where is process broken that's creating this problem. And when you do that, you can start to flush out all these gaps of like, well, how is the process done? Like, where's their lack of clarity? Where's their lack of clarity on who's doing the process and actually what their standard is? And it becomes more of a productive conversation. The other thing is you want to include as many people as possible that actually do the process.
Yeah.
Worst thing you can do as an owner is say, I'm going to sit in my office and I'm going to write these things out and tell the team how to follow it.
Yeah.
It's not going to get implemented.
Right. So when you're talking about these processes, you want to get everyone involved. So that's like a law of extreme ownership, is like you want everyone involved in the planning of the process so that everyone feels included, that it's their plan. So I guess, how would you say that it gets translated from the room that you're in to actual infield, like from the technician standpoint?
So part of the goal of having them in there is to create buy-in right then and there.
So you have the technicians in the room as well.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It may not be for the full 2 days, but at some point we bring them in so they get the opportunity to provide feedback. But by them verbalizing like, yeah, this makes sense, that's what we want to do, that just automatically creates accountability that they're going to follow it.
Gotcha.
And then the goal is like, how do we put systems in place to make sure they're following it?
What do you do? Because I imagine this comes up in your workshops a lot. What do you do about like nuances? Like, maybe it doesn't happen the same way all the time. It's not a repeatable process. There is some sort of variable that's getting in the way of defining that process. Walk me through how you overcome that obstacle.
So I like to start the workshops with our goal is to have structure in place so we can manage exceptions, not be managed by them. With the line of work that most of my clients do in the custom integration business, it's hard. There are tons of variables, but there's a way to try to standardize them to a point at which we can manage those. So then the others become outliers. And then we just figure out how do we control those. The outlier is the outlier, like you're familiar with the change orders that happen.
Yeah.
But then, then how do we manage that outlier? Like who's responsible for then bringing that back into the right workflow?
Right.
So again, just really defining that and setting that stage, because so many people think, well, we just can't do that in this business because there's too many exceptions.
Yeah.
That's not true. You could do that for any process.
Yeah. And you feel like your process could be used in any industry. Is that correct? So your process is the Six Sigma black belt.
Yeah. So with Lean Six Sigma, we focus on eliminating waste.
Okay.
So we can improve operational efficiencies. And you can apply that lens to almost any business. And I kind of developed a framework for the custom integration business, and people have seen how it can apply to theirs. And I've worked with companies in investment banking, capital investment groups, real estate investment, renewable energies. It applies everywhere because they all have a process, and they need to capture the current state to identify where all the gaps are.
Yeah. So you've been doing this for the last 5 years, and then full time for 3, 4, 5 years, something like that?
Yeah. So I actually started my business in 2014 as a consultant, but was like most consultants, where it was this project-based thing where someone said, can I hire you because you're smart to do this thing for me?
Yeah.
And quickly realized it's not scalable. But it wasn't until I got my Lean Six Sigma certification that I saw that I could have a repeatable service to deliver, and started that just before the pandemic. And it kind of grew during the pandemic because a lot of people's businesses grew.
Yeah.
And when they grow fast, they break systems and processes. And then 2023 in February is when I kind of went full time.
Have you seen a wide range of companies that you've helped?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with like hundreds of integrators, but I've probably worked with 24 or more in all these other varying industries.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of the same problems, even though they do different things.
I mean, I imagine you see the same problems in a lot of these shops. Like, you could write the book on problems and how to solve them, literally. Yeah. But I'm sure you see all these same problems with integrators. But there's got to be. Do you see integrators who have it very much together, that you're just really there to fine tune their last 1 to 5%? Yeah. Talk to me about the people who strongly have it figured out.
Yeah, so I had a workshop earlier this year where very large company that's been around for decades, and they have it very fine tuned. So where I might work with one integration firm, and they're like, we need checklists for QC, for pre-wire and trim, or we're not, we're having to go back to the projects multiple times because our techs aren't getting it right. Whereas like they have none of those problems, but they had a different bottleneck where there was just too much red tape and it was slowing things down, and they knew it.
Yeah.
But after 2 days, it was staring them in the face so much, and I'm very much a visual person, so I lay out processes visually that they're like, we can't ignore this. Like now we see, like we just have to fix this.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, I'm sure as you travel around the country, everyone has their own different culture, their way of doing things. Like some people are literally running day to day in complete chaos, and then on the contrary, you talk about these people who have it so fine tuned that like maybe they have it too fine tuned.
Yeah.
So it's really just crazy to see that such a range of companies exist in this market, and all we are really doing is we're paying people to install electronics. It's simple as that, but it gets far, far more complex.
Yeah.
So are you creating flow charts? Is that exactly what you're doing? Talk to me about what you're creating after these workshops. So you go into these workshops and you're looking to do what exactly? Could you remind the viewers? Remind me.
Yeah. So these companies are stuck because their processes and systems broke, and they're not sure where to start to get fixed. They might have a laundry list of things they know are broken, but there's probably others that they aren't aware of, their blind spots that can probably solve those. So I come in, and ultimately the deliverable is a process chart or a process map. But how we get there is in Lean Six Sigma, we call it value stream mapping. So we map a process at its current state. How does this happen today? And when you do that, it surfaces all the operational gaps. Like literally they become obvious, because if someone's saying, well, so we do it, here's how we build a proposal. We could do this, we do this. Oh, wait, we need to do that differently. Or when we do this, our software does this and we have this problem. And, oh, it's not clear who's handling that step. So you end up with all these operational gaps, which we kind of catalog and become an assessment. And you can turn those into a strategy. And throughout the workshop, we keep adjusting this process map to go. So we build a bridge from current state to future state and say, this is how we're going to follow it. And then here's all these gaps that we need to go solve for.
How do I remember that I need to follow this step? Will I have a printout and I'm literally going to have to follow it for 90 days?
Yeah, so there's a printout. Some clients actually get that printed on a magnetic whiteboard and use it for their project management meetings. There's other tools that come along with it, like a responsibility matrix on who's actually doing what. Yeah. And then at that point, it's constant, training and accountability. It's just not a one and done. It's like anything in life, like personal or professional. Takes, 3 months to build a habit. Yeah. So now it's having a tool and a baseline to measure yourself against, and then showing up every day and trying to change.
In the boardrooms, in the workshops, do you see people get wild?
I haven't seen like chairs thrown or anything. I've seen people break down. People get overwhelmed, but it's usually pretty healthy because, again, there's no finger pointing or complaining. It's like, where is the process broken? Sometimes, though, when there is a breakdown, it's actually more of a culture-related issue, which I cannot fix.
It's people hate each other.
Correct.
And then they're sabotaging the job.
Yeah, and that's a different consultant.
Yeah. So, would you consider yourself a consultant? Like,
I don't like that term, which is why I titled myself process architect, because I think consultants get a bad rap. Like they come in and tell you all the stuff you're doing bad and tell you what you need to do and send you on your way. I like people to self-discover not only their problems but solutions. And so I'm there to facilitate the conversation, but actually help them architect a process. Yeah. So I am a consultant, but I just don't like using that term.
Gotcha. So where do you get most of your business? How do people find you?
So started in the CDA channel. So part of how my business started, like when it actually launched in 2019, is I was speaking about Lean Six Sigma and the benefits, and somebody asked me to speak at a conference, and then somebody said, "Can I hire you?" And that's when they said, "Can you just take what's in my head and map it out?" And that was kind of the start of my framework that I use. And so that became word of mouth, speaking at conferences. I do a lot on LinkedIn. Don't get a ton of leads, but it reinforces and they see that messaging.
Yeah.
But then it just became a lot of word of mouth and then spread into other industries just, again, through word of mouth.
Very cool. The old AV manager at Eagle Century saw you at CDA, and he said you were the most fantastic talk that he saw. So, like,
oh, cool.
I really do want to shout that out, like Michael Millington, like shout out to Michael Millington for saying that. But, you know, it's cool that people find you through the CDA channel. Do you get a lot of, like, you help so-and-so and they refer you to another integrator? Is that a lot of...
Yeah, that happens a lot too. Because all these companies are stuck with process, and especially in like specialty trades, like most of these business owners were not business owners previously. They were a skilled tradesman. They were great at installing or designing or selling. And so they business built, and they've never acquired those business skills for process and organization. And so they all crave it and all need it at some point. It's just how much pain are they willing to go through and put up with and tolerate before it's time to do something different.
So I want to ask you, I think what you're bringing to integrators is a ton of value, right? Like, it's almost priceless. I'm sure, you know, there is a cap on how much, you know, you could charge for your services. But to me, something like having their process documented, if you don't have that, like, you're leaving money on the table. So any reasonable amount of money is how much someone could pay you. Have you seen that yourself in increased pricing over time? Like, I would say that you're a premium value service for integrators, and especially the big boys who have money. Like, you could charge them.
Right.
I guess, so have you been raising your rates over the years?
I have.
Yes.
So when we talk about word of mouth referrals, one of my clients they're running on EOS, which is the Entrepreneur Operating System, and companies that use EOS as a framework to run their business use implementers as their coach.
Yep.
So I was referred to the coach. She is not from this industry, and she got on a call with me and said, take me through your service because they raved about you, and said, I'll refer you to every client, but you need to raise your prices.
Yeah.
And so I did, and that was like the first time I made kind of a big jump, and nobody flinched.
Yeah.
I just did it again recently. Part of that's more due to, like, just costs are getting higher, and nobody flinched.
Yeah.
And the way I tie it together, like, for example, the workshop I'm in today, there's 15 employees in there that have been in there all day, not billing time to clients. That's more expensive than me.
Yeah.
But having them involved is priceless.
Yeah.
But the number I like to tie it around is this cost of miscommunication, which I talk a lot about on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It was a study done by Grammarly. So $12,506 per employee per year. So when you have 30 plus employees, that's $400,000 that you're losing because of those breakdowns in processes. We could probably find one or two things in a workshop that could cut that in half, right?
That's how I think about life. It's like, sometimes I will solve a problem and I say, oh, like, I just solved a $5,000 problem. Like, someone should literally reward me with $5,000 because I just solved a $5,000 problem.
Yeah.
And I would be curious, from your perspective, in a workshop, how many problems, minimum to maximum, do you think you're solving?
So, like, for example, like, the way we capture operational gaps on Post-it notes is in 4 categories. There's knowledge gaps, which are where are the things that are not clear on how we do them. Alignment gaps, which are where is it not clear on who's responsible. Software gaps, and then an other bucket. And so that list could usually be 30 or 40 deep per category, which seems like a lot. But when you start to summarize and analyze it, there's probably a few overarching challenges or problems that actually could fix them all. So an actual number is kind of hard to put down, but usually, you know, half a dozen that you could start working on within the next 30, 60 days that can move the needle is really what our goal is. So
I like that you said that. So you don't solve the problems instantly.
No.
Interesting. Interesting. I really like that.
There's some that are like some major aha moments sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, I was with an integrator once, and it was a pretty large company, and we start the workshops usually with everybody sharing a story on where there's friction, like where's there a breakdown that creates more work for them. And the CFO complained because she had a $20,000 check sitting on her desk, and there was no invoice, so she couldn't deposit it. So she spent 2 weeks trying to track it down.
Yeah.
And my question was, well, who's supposed to create an invoice that doesn't make that check show up on your desk? Well, that would be the salespeople.
Yeah.
So we bring the salespeople into the conversation. It turns out one person admitted sometimes they're just too busy. The other person admitted they didn't know it was their job. And the third person didn't even know how to create an invoice.
Yeah.
So right there, it was like, okay, well, that problem, like, there should be no reason that should happen next week. Like, now it was all very clear, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes those instant solves happen. But for me, it's like, we need to find 3 to 5 things that you can start on in the next 30, 60 days so it's manageable. But those are things that are going to move the needle, because what you're trying to do is nobody has time to work on this stuff.
Yeah.
But if you could put a few things in place that like start to free up time, it creates this flywheel.
Do you see like oftentimes people have like wars, like a sales versus operations war, or a warehouse versus technician war? Like, do you ever see that two parties strongly, like, they don't think each other is doing it right in either way, and either have valid points?
Yeah.
And like, how do you, I know you said you're not there to necessarily mediate and make these employees like each other, but how do you work through that when maybe there's two strongly opposing forces?
So I try to find the common, thing that they're, like, the install team could be complaining that scope of works aren't accurate, and the sales team could be saying that they are, right? And then so we try to drill in and find a root cause. So there's like a number of tools, but ultimately there's something that's causing that. And probably there is no standardized way scope of work. So then sales are just doing it the way they think it's done, and it's not right for them. And so then we all just need to agree on how it is. So that's just one example, but it's usually just trying to find that common thread and then dig into like what the root cause is, not the complaints, but like what's really causing this thing to happen.
And I like that you brought up scope of work, because like scope of work has such a big range too. It's like hang a TV, hang a 65-inch TV, hang a 65-inch TV on a fixed bracket, hang a 65-inch TV on a fixed bracket on a stone wall, hang a 65-inch TV on a frame bracket on a stone wall in the great room on this wall.
Right.
I mean, you can be so sloppy when it comes to scope of work, or you can be so detailed. And it's like when you reference the company that really has it together, I can promise you their scope of work isn't hang a TV.
Yeah.
Do you see when people are operationally excellent in one area that they're often operationally excellent in another area?
Yeah, I mean, it usually transcends into those other areas because they realize the importance of having a standard and a practice, and then they can see how that can go and translate into another area.
So one thing I would respect is like an integrator, if they are like a slop integrator, they have a lot of challenges. If they're bringing you in, at least they're trying.
Yeah.
I would make the comparison. It's like an overweight person at the gym. Like, you should never make fun of someone, especially if they're trying, right? Like, if someone hires you, they're on the right track. But the question is are they going to listen to you?
Well, and are they willing to change? So like you said, the overweight person who's trying to go to the gym, it's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
You have to be willing to change. So like I've had people reach out that are interested in hiring me, and they're like, we just need some standard operating procedures. I'm like, I have a Google Drive full of 30 of them that I've written.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give them to you. It's not going to solve your problem.
Yeah.
The problem is you need to change your habits. Those are just the standards that are documented to follow. You need to change your habits.
So I know that someone could document their process without hiring you. Would you agree with that statement?
Oh, 100%. I mean, there's tons of YouTube videos. I mean, with AI now, like that's a whole nother thing that it's all there for the taking.
But when someone works with you, they're highly, highly more likely to be successful. Why is that?
Part of it's the accountability, just like, I'll go on your gym analogy. Like when you're paying a personal trainer, like they're going to hold you accountable to eat better, exercise better. They're not giving you, it's not like rocket science,
Yeah.
like you know what to do. So that's a large part of it. And then just giving them the tools to get there faster to see results, right? Not just spinning your wheels on things or, getting bogged down in the minutia. Like you got someone to kind of pull you out and help you get there faster.
Do you get people that are frustrated with you in the workshops? They like aren't really happy you're here. You're kind of like making their lives hell. You're calling out accountability.
Yeah. I worked with one company once. I don't remember if it was the first day or the second day, and I asked the owner how he felt, and he's like, I feel extremely overwhelmed. I think I feel worse than when I started. I'm like, why? And he's like, because we have all this shit to fix. I'm like, but that stuff was there.
The truth came out.
And he wanted to be able to solve it right away.
Yeah. I feel like that would be unmotivating.
Yeah.
Because, it's like the question I asked you. Like, I would want to solve the problems instantly. Like, Jason, why can't we solve the problems today? What would you give me as a response?
No one did that when they started their business, right? They didn't start the perfect business, most people. It was some client wanted to pay you to go install this gear, and there's a part of that you're really good at, and there's a bunch of stuff you weren't, and you figured that out, and then you iterated over time. Now the business has just gotten to this point where, like, you need to get out of your own way, which is why you bring someone in like me, just like you bring in a coach for anything, right? Like, you need help getting out of your own way. What got you there isn't going to get you further.
Talk to me about, like, founders, owners, things like that. Do you find that they are often, and we can make some generalizations, do you find that they're often helping or hindering?
A lot of times they're hindering.
It's a generalization, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, self-inflicted. Like, they're trying to do the right thing, but they can't delegate.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's a big thing, is they just can't delegate the tasks that are the bottlenecks, right? They're in the middle of all the approvals, and they can't let that go. Well, no process is going to fix that. Then there's the cultural issues where it's like, do as I say, not as I do. And again, that's a whole nother thing that I don't touch.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just them not being able to recognize where they need to delegate and get out of their own way.
Sure. So as far as, like, documentation, I know there's a tool out there called Trainual.
Mm-hmm.
I have used Trainual. I'm familiar with Trainual. I think it's awesome. I think it's kind of like right up the alley of what you're talking about, documenting, like, actual processes. All companies should have basic things like PTO policies, like how do I call in sick? There's 100 basic policies. How do I clock in for work?
Yeah.
If people don't know how to do that, and Jason, you literally go to half these firms, and I'm sure they don't have a documented process on how to clock in and out. It's like, I'm sure you would never say anything negative about your clients, and I would say that sometimes it's probably embarrassing. Like, they haven't done the bare minimum. You find clients that haven't done the bare minimum?
Yeah, I mean, every client I sign an agreement with, I say, send me all your documentation so I can just see what it is you have. And some just don't send it because it's like Word documents with, like, half-written notes, and it's old. I have some that are on Trainual, or like Whale's another one.
Say one more time?
Whale. Yeah, so it's knowledge management software,
Okay, yeah.
very, very similar to Trainual. But yeah, they don't have any of these things captured or documented.
But the ones that do are very impressive.
Yeah, those that do, like, it's a very, we hire the employee, and from here to 30 days, it's very well captured, like what they're going to learn, what they're going to teach, check-ins, and it's like anything. All the prep work up front is what gives you the success later on.
So, on what you just talked about, I want to talk about the niche players in our industry. So, right, earlier you talked about consulting. So, like Matt Bernathis, who came to mind, right? He's a friend of the podcast. He's a friend of ours. And then you just talked about, like, the first 90 days. So I'm thinking, like, training you. Train you or something.
Yep.
Everyone kind of has their own little niche. Like Prep Tech has their niche with Paul and Helen. I think really the next big player is going to be like an AI player. Like I'm ready to see who's going to be the player for custom integration in the AI niche. I'm sure there's a lot of different niche players, but it's all fascinating that 95% of the companies are operating as installers, and then there's the niche people who are, like, helping them out.
Right.
It's fascinating in our industry, and we can't forget about the manufacturers, the installers, and then the others. But I think the others are the most interesting.
Yeah, I would agree with you on the AI thing.
Yeah.
Because I go to conferences, and there's a couple of experts that are speaking and kind of sharing how they're using it in their own businesses, which has been awesome.
Yeah.
But usually when there's a show of hands of how many people are using the tools, it's like 20% of the crowd.
Yeah.
And now more than ever, I go in and work with these companies, and a lot of their operational gaps could be solved with AI.
I feel like you could do it. I mean, then you're kind of losing focus, which is maybe not what you want to do. If you could clone yourself, it would definitely be a sweet move, dude. But AI is so powerful.
Yeah, I've done some mapping work for an AI company because it's the same thing. They got a client that had all these manual processes and they're trying to solve for it, but they didn't have a clear visual on where all those gaps were. And I got a couple integrators that are heavy into AI, and we're doing some like workflow mapping specifically around how AI can solve for it. So not going to promise anything, but I'm scratching that itch because I definitely think it's the future. There's so many things that can be automated and done, from creating a scope of work and just like reducing time on things. Yeah.
So I'm working on a process right now that is broken. So our incoming lead process is currently kind of broken. It's very manual. It's very tedious. And today I decided to punch it into ChatGPT, kind of based on, like, I knew we were going to be hanging out later today, so I wanted to, do a little bit on process and AI and all that jazz. So I'm trying to automate when an incoming lead comes in. I need to, 1, get it to the right person. So put in some variables for that. 2, put it in like a Excel sheet, and then 3, put it in our CRM. And I haven't put the code into either Zapier or N8N, which is like an automation tool. But ChatGPT spit it out 13 different steps of code of how I can do this. And if it works, right, that's a $5,000 payday.
Yeah.
Right? I just saved so much time and money and operational inefficiency. And I'm sure that's probably the number one thing that makes you cringe is operational inefficiency. Does it make you want to cry at night?
Yeah, I mean, manual processes, or just I was with a client once where they were complaining about change orders. Yeah. So instead of doing change orders the right way, they just created a workaround to buffer it, which was creating more problems. It's just follow the way the process is, or people jumping to spreadsheets out of software. Those are
too much software is a thing now too.
So it's creating a ton of time and it's potential for errors, which is all adding up to that huge cost of miscommunication. It's literally costing you money. You need to see that.
Do you think the $12,000 per person figure is accurate? How accurate do you think that number is?
I actually think it's low.
Yeah.
So from when I was in the manufacturer's rep side, the example I like to give is we sold Future Automation, high-end automated brackets, amazing product. On average, those things were like $18,000 dealer cost. And so once a month, someone would call me and say, hey, we ordered this bracket, but we got the wrong one. Why'd you get the wrong one? Well, when we quoted it, we didn't have all the specs, so we just did a quote for a budget, but nobody ever updated it. It got onto a PO, and you can't return those. And so it's sitting in your warehouse. You're waiting for the right project to put it on, and it's probably sitting next to piles of shades that got misordered and light fixtures. And people literally, when I tell them that scenario, go, holy shit, your number's low. Because when I look at just misordered custom products that I have to eat, it's way higher than that number.
Yeah.
And then when you can add up other things like techs show up at job sites, and they're missing RJ45s, and they got to go run to the...
That's what Prep Tech was based all upon. I helped Paul and Helen out a lot with it, so I'm highly familiar about what Prep Tech was doing, and that's essentially it. What I like to focus on is the amount of billable hours. So the car mechanic, their mechanic is probably going to work on a car for 40 hours a week, and they're going to bill for 40 hours or more. In our industry, their technician will work for 40 hours and maybe collect on 20 hours, right, half the time. And I mean, it varies from company to company, but everyone is, wasting times on meeting. Everyone's wasting times on gas stations. Everyone's wasting time on lunch. Everyone's wasting time on runs to the part shop. It's it is embarrassing. And I think I might be hard. I am kind of hard at that, things that should be better, it's an embarrassment, that things aren't better. And I would say, certain things need to change, immediately. And that's kind of, my perspective. If something is, so bad, you got to make a change today. That's kind of my perspective on it. Do you ever feel... I mean, you told me that people get overwhelmed sometimes when they come in. Talk to me about maybe the 2 girls that almost cried.
Yeah, so there was a little bit of a generational thing. There were some younger girls in this interior design firm But when we started talking about process and where the broken processes affect their role, they got pretty emotional because they just felt the other team members just didn't care and kind of dumped things on them. And it was kind of less about process and more about not necessarily culture, but there was obviously some breakdowns there that we had to get through because no process is going to fix that, right? If they feel that way, whether they're right or not. And we talked through that, and it was like an hour-long derailment of the kind of workshop. But again, like if we didn't address it, it was just going to make things worse, right? And so sometimes those things surface to the top where there's some deeper-rooted issues that are causing those breakdowns.
How do you keep the conversation moving? Like, do you have a 5-minute talking rule? Like, what do you say? Like,
I don't have like a set rule.
No?
I try to I feel like I'm really good at reading the room.
Yeah.
But I definitely try not to let I try to decide at what point it needs to just go into a parking lot. But also to keep it from just spiraling down complaints, I like to ask a lot of questions like, well, why did that happen? Why is that happening? Because then they'll surface the answer themselves or see that maybe they're just kind of complaining.
Do you ever get in a room where the owner starts... Okay, let me frame it. So, do you ever get in a room where everyone is in disagreement with the owner and the owner thinks they're right? Like, has that happened to you? No?
I don't think so. Maybe for like a small area.
Portion?
A small portion. Like,
But it's never like bar rescue where it's like
No.
people just like can't stand this
they're
guy.
not,
Like
throwing things.
Yeah.
And it hasn't gotten to those types of fisticuffs.
Do you do a lot of like... Do you visit a lot of like family firms? Like, are there, mom and pop shops? Do you see a lot of mom and pop shops?
I don't think so. There's a family element, but not where there's like 3 or 4 people in the family all working together.
Yeah,
Like,
the mom, the dad, the brother.
Yeah.
Like, interesting.
I don't think so.
Dude, so I went to a conference earlier this year at the Mandalay Bay, the Home Service Freedom event. It was sick. Like, you would have loved it. It's like all these people trying to get ahead in home services. It was the most incredible like room full of people. I met the guy that runs Gettle. Sorry, you're not from here, so you don't know what Gettle is a West Coast huge HVAC company.
Okay.
Man, the 60 to 70-year-old men that were speaking on the stage, the one that owns Gettle, I think it's called, I forget, Infinity. I don't know. But these are some of the most legendary people in home services. They make like $500 million a year in their company. It was like truly a very impressive place to be. But it's all sorts of home services people, and I feel like you could help them. Roofers, plumbers, HVAC.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at an integration firm, they're a specialty trade company, and those are all the same, right? They all sell a product and service. I think those companies get less emotionally attached to what they're selling, whereas in our field, we get really emotionally attached to the things we're selling. Like, these are the most amazing speakers, and it's the coolest control system, and people want to be an artist on what they're creating, which is great to have that passion, but at some point you have to disconnect from that to just run the business. Like, nobody really cares about their passion in how this HVAC handler works. No, they want to deliver a good service to the client, right?
What do you think about singularity of focus? So I think you might be a master of singularity of focus because you just pick one thing to be excellent at. You don't want to be excellent at Control4, Savant, and Crestron. You want to be a master at process architecture. And I think like when I talk about like AI, there is an AI element. I think you could sell what I mentioned is like the lead AI software, right? Like you could sell a mini software like that if you really figured it out, right? If you had a good team behind you, I'm sure you could definitely figure that out. So first of all, complimentary on the singularity of focus. How do you maintain the singularity of focus?
I just try not to, I try to get pulled in other things.
I'm sure, man.
And some things I do because I'm curious, like with the AI company, and I'm doing some process work more on software than like the overall thing that I do. But it's a balance because you just don't want to go chasing shiny objects. Yeah. And I try to know what my limits are. Like I've had people that want to hire me for just coaching, and I'm like, that's not me. Like I can get on a phone with you once a month and ask you questions and, if you want that for like therapy, but like that's just not what I do. Like I'm not. There are people that are good at it, like Mapper Nath, and there's a handful of others in this industry that are really good coaches to like let you dump all your stuff on the table and then tell you what you should do and motivate you. I can do that just around process.
But it's a no-brainer to me. If my company was like, if it on any range from sucks to mid to like somewhat embarrassing to average to like even good, unless we're like stellar, I totally believe in hiring someone who's smarter than you.
Yeah.
In every area of my life, I've always tried to hire someone that's way incredibly smarter than me.
I've done it as well myself, even for my own business, for different areas where I needed help.
And it's always ROI positive. It might not be like at the exact moment, but every self-investment, like when you're really doing something productive, is so positive. It's incredible.
Yep.
So that's why, like, when someone would want to work with you, it's a no-brainer to me. Like, to me, your value is like 100%. It's not like, do you feel like you ever have to sell people, or like do people get like, I got to think about it?
Not too much. I mean, I've had that before, but what I can usually, if I play back the call in my head or watch the recording, it's just I know that they're not up for change, right? Like there's plenty of owners that know they need this.
Do you record the calls?
Yeah, I do. They're not willing to put in the work because they're all of a sudden they're like, oh, wait a minute, this is going to force me to do things differently. My team's going to hold me accountable. I'm not ready for that yet. Yeah. That's usually what it is.
Yeah. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, in the last 5 years of your company, I'm sure you've made, massive success forward. You've elevated. But I wanted to see maybe one thing that you changed in yourself or in your business that brought you from good to great, something that really brought you to the next level. One tweak, one thing that you did.
So last year, first of all, it was with anything, it was being humble enough to say, all right, I'm going to need help. And so for me, there's a great book called Crossing the Chasm that you can apply to any business or product you're trying to launch, which is the period of time that you have where you have early adopters who are willing to pay whatever for your service or product. But then as you grow and scale it, it's harder to, hence cross that chasm to get to more people who are less risk adverse. And that was a point I hit because people that know they had process problems and COVID, exposed those.
Yeah.
I mean, I just had to show them what I did and they're like, yeah, I need you.
Yeah.
But then as I went full time and we got out of COVID and people were not growing their businesses as much, they weren't as flush with cash, owners weren't sitting working at home as much, it was harder to convince people. Not that I tried to convince people, but it was harder. I guess I should say it was harder to relay my messaging of how I'm going to fix a problem for them and show them how I understand what their problem was.
Yeah.
Because it was less about like I help you with process. So I worked with a coach to just redo my messaging and kind of redefine like how I solve a problem.
Is this Nick Bennett? Is that who you're talking
about?
Yeah. You put
Nick.
Me on this guy. So that's what I like about you, dude. Is that like you really do. You're, what's the word, like a networker, but you're like a relationship builder. You're like a community builder. Like, I really like that.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, I don't know where that stems from other than like my dad growing up was like, he was the guy in the neighborhood that had all the tools he would lend out and help anyone with anything. And that, got to be careful with that too because people take advantage of you.
Yeah.
But when I was growing throughout my career, if someone had a problem they were facing, I couldn't solve it, and I knew someone. To me, it was like, well, why don't I just connect these people?
Yeah.
And I'm not doing it to get something out of it, but you do get things good in return.
Yeah. So we're in Las Vegas right now. Like every city is very different. Growing up in Las Vegas, it's very different than growing up in other cities. So like status is something that like people in Las Vegas focus on, and like what you're describing is like a high status activity, like being that community builder, like being able to introduce people to one another, like has ROI so positive, man. Like it's just such a great character aspect. It's a really good quality to have, and like I think you got it locked down.
It's currency.
Yeah, it is currency. And I mean, we won't get too deep into this, but like there's all different forms of currency in life. Like money is currency, power, status is currency. So it's great that you called that out. Like I think it's really important to have good status. And I mean, status is also about being known, and I think you're known in the industry. I think you are at all the right places doing all the right things. One thing that maybe I'd call out, and maybe I want to know more about your marketing strategy, it's kind of hard to make a flowchart sexy. Like, how can you make a flowchart super duper sexy to the masses? I don't know. Like, I feel like a smart home, you can easily visually capture about why you need one. But a flowchart, I don't know. Like, tell me about it. What's your strategy like? What's your thought process when I ask the question?
So when I was in high school, I actually wanted to be an architect, hence kind of the name that I branded myself, because I loved design. And with architecture, like, things have to be very clear and laid out. What I always hated about process maps when I was going through Lean Six Sigma and just other areas I was exposed to them is, sure, they documented how things flowed, but like, you had to wrap your brain around on what was actually going on. So to me, it's like, that's counterintuitive. So when I started doing this, like, my first client said, map out what's in my head. I'm like, well, it's got to be really, really clear. Now, my early charts were not that clear, but clear enough to help solve the problem for my clients. So along the way, like, I just kept taking feedback from clients where they're like, hey, could you do this, so I could see this and it stand out? And when I saw how that impacted them, I'm like, that's my new standard. So I'm constantly trying to iterate. And I don't follow the normal process map. Like, business process mapping is a very structured approach to map a business process. But to me, it's like, you have to have a decoder ring to understand the symbols, which defeats the purpose. So I try to use just very basic and capture like the time element. Like, we read left to right, the flow chart should go left to right. So that it's less visually straining.
Gotcha. So I can imagine day one, day two, people are pumped. All right. Would you say most of the people are pumped by the end of day two?
Yeah, because they feel like they've gotten everything out. Their team understands. Like, they feel like they finally got this like list of problems they need to solve.
Okay, so then they go back to work the next day. Energy is still probably pretty high, but I can imagine day by day, energy may taper off. How do you keep the energy alive?
So at the end of any of these workshops, the goal is to create a strategy with a game plan on what we want to start working on. And I think the trick is to pick something that's going to start, you're going to see returns on right away. And that's going to be different for everyone. And then the goal is for them to really want to change their habits and keep checking them in. It's tough. It's probably one of the harder parts that I wish I could figure out a better way to solve. Yeah. Because if there was any of my clients that had anything negative to say, it would be that like we just allowed ourselves to get sucked back into the project, and there's only so much of that I can control.
Yeah. So let's say I had an assignment and I'm still dropping the ball. What do you recommend the team members do after the coaching?
I mean, try to figure out why that ball is being dropped. Like, is it, so to me, when those things happen, it's either a people problem or a process problem. Process means it's not defined, and that's why the ball is being dropped, or it's people, which could be training on that given process, or it could just be a people problem, like wrong person, wrong seat, wrong position.
What about convenience? Like, I was driving when the phone call came in, so then I couldn't do it, and then, something happened, and excuses.
Yeah.
Like, how do you deal with excuses?
Try to use them to get to a root cause. So if the whatever that problem is, and it's like, well, it was a phone call. Well, where did that problem show up again? And then there's that excuse. By asking the questions and by people verbalizing it, either the person or the boss like realizes like it's a people problem. Sometimes they self-realize it. Like, I've had people in these conversations like, I just realized I'm the problem, like, because you're verbalizing it, saying it out loud. But I try not to get into like reprimanding or like I'm just there to facilitate. Like, I hope that an owner is seeing this and then is going to be able to go deal with that, because that's just not, like, I'm trying to surface the issues.
I know you're not like super detective mode, but do you ever uncover some like someone stealing from the company? You ever uncover some bombshells in a company?
Trying to think. No, I don't think I've uncovered anyone.
Or someone that's literally not doing anything. It's like, what does Tommy even do here?
Not directly, but indirectly, yeah. So because when we do the flow chart, and everybody's, mapping out milestones of a project. And then we do the responsibility, which is now saying who's doing all these tasks. I've heard from a few clients, it's like, we got rid of this person and that person because we realized through this process that they weren't really doing a lot of stuff.
They were eliminating roles.
Right. And it's not that they're bringing me in to do that, but these people were hiding behind the fact that there was no process.
Yeah.
So that lack of accountability. So that has happened, but nothing where it was like an aha in a meeting, like, Joe, what are you doing here?
Yeah. It's interesting. Like, I would be fascinated to like watch one of these workshops in real life as like a fly on the wall. Like, do you record them when you go into these companies? I just started using a Plod device to record them. Interesting.
So that I could turn that around as kind of a deliverable, because even though we capture Post-it notes and that turns into a report, there's a lot of really good things that get brought into the conversation that I'm not note taking. So I haven't dug into that yet. I literally just started doing that. I was using just a regular recorder before, but that was just like you'd have to listen to it. So I want to use the Plod to kind of produce another deliverable.
Can you usually find out who's the smartest person in the room? Like, is it apparent and obvious to you who the smartest person in the room might be?
Not always, because sometimes that's the quietest person.
Yeah.
But sometimes the quietest person is just not wanting to contribute. But yeah, I mean, it does surface a lot of those things, from like the smartest person to the person that everybody relies on. Like, you really start to be able to identify a lot of things within the different people in the group.
Do you find the most likable person in the room?
Yeah, you can do that too.
Yeah. I think that's pretty easy. Like, the most likable person in the room is like, you can find out that pretty quick.
Because you'll see other people calling their name to contribute and how they're all interacting.
Or if they look at you and they're like, oh, what does so-and-so think? Like,
yeah.
That's the most important person in the room.
So it's funny because, people hire me to come in and do this workshop and surface gaps, but like, there's so many elements out of it that some of it I designed on purpose, some of it I didn't, that come out of it. Like those things, like, there's things that owners identify within their people that they had no idea, because they just see how they participate and how they ask questions.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you about next steps, kind of what you're working on. So I don't know if it's this year or last year, but you launched your cohort group.
Yep.
It's the guide.
Yep.
And how many have you done? How has the success been? Are you enjoying it? And maybe just give us some context on what's going on with it.
Yeah, so GUIDE stands for Great Utility and Documented Experiences. So that's kind of my service in general. It's the framework in which I help companies identify the gaps. And it just becomes this experience, all separate from just documentation. Like, it's this all-encompassing experience. So I created the cohort because I would speak at conferences and people wanted to learn more. They weren't ready to hire me direct. Could be a budget thing. It could just be they're not ready, but they still needed this place to start. So I recognized a gap from companies that needed help, didn't matter the size, to like getting one-on-one coaching. The other thing I realized is I've worked with hundreds of integrators, and most of the stuff that I create custom is all very similar because they all do the same thing.
Yeah.
So I created a way of making these tools more basic and generic to give people a place to start, and then through a group kind of program.
Yeah.
So it started the fall of last year, and then I've done 3 this year.
Okay.
They all have around 15 people. Could be multiples from one integrator or 15 different ones.
Yeah.
All varying sizes, revenue, employee headcount. They've gone over really well.
Nice.
The feedback's been really good. I'm about to launch the next one in January, like the middle of January. I got some messaging going out about that.
Yeah.
And really trying to grow it because there's so many integrators that just need that place to start.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to do is, as I learn from it, add more tools, more value. So this next one, I'm going to add a session and talk more about software, because that's become such a pain point. And I'm starting to work on some tools to help companies kind of flush out their software gaps and figure out how to make their software work better.
It's hard, man.
It is. There's no perfect software. But there's some way, like, software is a tool to make your process more efficient.
Yeah.
And so trying to create a tool where they can clearly see that to figure out where they can optimize their software.
Yeah.
But yeah, just trying to keep getting feedback from everybody that goes through the cohort, build that up with more tools, and stack that onto the one-on-one services.
Nice. I feel like you're getting people on your email list is huge for you. I mean, I'm on your email list. I think that's where I hear about what you're doing, what you're up to. So kudos to you. you started your email list somewhere along the lines that it's been a great ROI positive tool for you?
Yeah, I mean, I put stuff out now, and people either book a call to learn about my services, or I'm starting to get more people say they enjoy the emails. So I'm actually going to create a newsletter next year as a goal to start one.
You wouldn't consider what you got going on now a newsletter?
No, I figure like a mass communication, but I mean, okay. I tried to not make it a salesy communication. Like, I want people to take something from it. Like, it's not to like, hey, hire me. It's like, here's this thing. And I think I have more of that. Like, I put out a lot on LinkedIn, but I think I can put that into a newsletter that would be even more beneficial. I've had people ask for that. Because right now the email list has just grown organically from going to conferences and, you know, doing some webinars.
Dude, it's rad. I got a lot of respect for the entrepreneur in you. I think that that's like dope. Okay, one question I did want to ask. Is this your purpose?
Yeah, I mean,
That's so important. I wanted to ask this one.
Throughout my career, which a lot of it was in sales training, tech support, and then sales management. Like, I just always enjoyed helping people solve problems, right? Like, even from a sales perspective, it was less about selling all this gear to them, but it was like helping them solve a problem with that equipment. But this, when I went through the Lean Six Sigma and figured out how I could really help people solve, like, that's where I get the most enjoyment, like seeing where someone was really able to change. So I love it. I mean, it's super enjoyable.
I think it's dope. And I went on your website today, tons of great positive testimonials. So really great work. I know it's a full-time gig. I know you put a lot into it. So I imagine that there's a lot of hard work and a lot of hours that have gone into the process management. But I'm sure anyone who works with you will find ROI positive. Anyone will find that value. So I think it's super cool. I think it's dope that you were able to start the business, find customers, and truly help people. And I think that when you define that as your purpose, that you're not only just helping someone do something, but you're actually like solving problems. You're solving like $12,000 problems at a time. I think that's like pretty dope.
Yeah, it's fun. When you see those light bulb moments and you see people, again, self-discover, I'm like, that's the big thing for me. Like, I can go in within 30 minutes and ask questions and kind of figure out where people are broken and kind of tell them what to do. But they need to self-discover them if they really want to change.
Can you talk to me about the transition from having a job to being self-employed? You got a lot of risk.
Yeah, not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough that when this started to become a real side gig, my boss at the time was totally cool with it. So I was speaking at conferences, and as a rep, like, reps don't go to those conferences. But it was also really good because it gave our rep firm a lot of really good, representation. But I was very transparent with, how I was spending my time, and as long as it wasn't, taking away from time, he was cool with it. So that was the first thing. Like, if you're trying to do this while you're doing another job, if it's not possible to get buy-in, like, be super careful. But if you can, like, it helped out a ton. It helped it was COVID. Yeah. So, like, you could work, 18-hour days on Zoom across time zones. And so it was easier for me to balance that a little bit. Yeah. And then, I was able to, get close to half my salary in revenue for a couple of years and build that traction and that runway. Yeah. But even when I leaped where I was mentally ready, like, I still wasn't ready. Like, everyone will tell you have this much money saved up, and none of them are right. Like, save as much as you can, but just be prepared for ups and downs and things to happen. And I went through that too. Like, and it's not for the faint of heart. Yeah. But it teaches you a lot and perseveres. I mean, that's kind of how my cohort started. Like, I had a couple of workshops get rescheduled because they were both in Florida during hurricanes, and it sucked a ton of revenue I was expecting. Yeah. And there was people asking me for this cohort, and it lit a fire to launch it, and I sold it out in 2 days, and it helped my business. Yeah. So it's not for the faint of heart, but if you can stomach it, it actually helps you with building your business better.
And your character, I'm sure, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And your pocketbook. I mean, there's there's no reason people shouldn't do it. I'm gonna get there, but I really think it's incredible kind of what you're doing, and I think, like, I don't know, like, it's just so cool what you're doing, and I don't know anyone in any other industry that's doing it, I know like MGM Resorts works with like a Lean Six Sigma black belt, but I'm sure that's way more like corporate and a lot of, super red tape structure.
Yeah.
And I think what you're doing is fun because you go into these, integration firms, probably most of them are less than 50 in headcount. You talk to them and you fix their problems. I think you're like the savior, you know what I mean? And it's better than being the consultant that comes with, you're not doing this right, I'm going to get you fired. You just come to save the day.
Yeah. I mean, Lean Six Sigma is used in a lot of those big companies, and it's a very structured approach. There's statistical analysis.
Yeah.
And for those large companies, like, it makes sense. Like, American Express has a headquarters by our office, and I know a guy that he runs a team of Lean Six Sigma black belts, and that's all they do is they pick 4 or 5 projects a year to create efficiencies and save that company money. But like when I went through that, I did that process with a friend of mine who owned a plumbing contracting business to get my black belt. But I could not go deploy that inside these companies. Nobody's going to sign a 6-month contract and let me come in and take measurements of data. So I just took like aspects of it that I thought was pretty common sense, like identifying waste, and turn that into kind of a product and service. And it's easier to deploy in these small to medium-sized businesses because they don't got time for all the other stuff.
Yeah, the only example I know is MGM Resorts, who is the largest employer in Nevada. They own like 10 casinos. All of their housekeepers were using different chemical products. They were doing the process a completely different way. So the organizational effectiveness committee, the Lean Six Sigma, came in and they said, guys, we're using one product for all the 10 resorts, and we're going to do this one way. And that was one of their maybe 4 projects of the year, and they solved it. And I think that's when I got hooked. From that point on, I was like, okay, like this is a thing. So I imagine your life is probably well documented, organized, and you can take this to other parts of life, Jason?
Yeah, you can. I don't always practice it.
Yeah,
in my
of course you
personal
don't.
life, but yeah, no, you can apply it pretty much anywhere.
It's dope. And I really thank you for coming on the show today. Thanks for talking about Lean Six Sigma. I think it's fascinating what you do for integrators. I think it's a great purpose in life, and I really got a lot of respect for you. So I'm happy that you were able to come in the studio, get this done today. And I think the viewers are really going to enjoy the show. So thanks for coming on, man.
No, thanks for having me. I'm glad it lined up.
Cool. I got to make sure I push the stop button here, everybody. But thanks so much for watching Elevation with Chris Oram. This has been episode 32 with Jason Sayen. We'll see you in the next one.